The Python programming is based on one of the revolutionary concept called object-oriented programming language. That means the developers who created the Python program has made use of the classes and objects in their program. So, let's start with understanding the classes in Python. In simple terms, we can call the class as a code template for creating the objects. So to understand this concept intuitively, we can think of a class as a sketch or a blueprint of a house. Actually, it contains all the details about the floors, doors, windows, and so on. And based on this blueprint, we will build the house, and the house here is the object. So guys, to summarize this, I can say as class is a code template for creating the object. And based on this code template, objects can be created. Just like we can build as many houses from a single plan, we can create as many objects we want from a single class. Now, let's learn how we can create a class in Python. So to create the class in Python, we make use of class keyword. So I'll write it like this. Yes. Let's understand what is written here. First, I have made use of the keyword class, and this instructs the Python that we are creating a new class. After that, I have mentioned a name for our class, and here I have mentioned the name of the class as mycar. Then I have made use of the colon to write the code. Inside the class block, created a new variable as new car and set its value to be equal to Mercedes. The variable which is created inside the class is known as attribute of the class. So guys, to summarize here, we use the class keyword to specify that we are creating a class. Here, in this example, my car is the name of the class and new car is the attribute of the class. As we can see, once the code is executed, nothing has happened. This is because when a class is created, nothing physical is created. You can recall the previous example. Class is like a blueprint or a plan of the house. That means it does not exist physically. Only houses exist physically. That means only the object exists physically. So guys, now that we have learned as how to create a class in Python, let's see how to create an object from our class. Here, I'll create an object for our class like this. Car1 is equal to my car. So this will create the object as car1 of the class my car. And as you can easily understand from the syntax, we specify the object name on the left side and set it equal to class name. And inside the parenthesis, we will specify any arguments if the class accepts. So, it's like object name is equal to class name. And inside the parenthesis, we will specify the arguments. Got it? Now, with the object created, we can access an attribute of class as object name dot attribute, which we are referring to. In our class, we have the attribute as new car. So, we will access this attribute as print car1 dot new car. Here, car1 is the object name and the new car is attribute. So, I'll now execute the code. Yes, as you can observe, we have the output as Mercedes. In this way, we access the attribute of the class. Apart from specifying the attributes, we also have methods which can be written inside the class. And here, methods refer to functions written inside the class. The way we write the method inside the class is similar to how we write the function in Python. So to illustrate the same, I'll write the method which prints the value in the attribute new car. So I'll write it like this. Yes. So this time I have written a new method as car name. And inside the method, I have written the print statement which prints the value in variable new car. Also, if you observe, I have added a new parameter as self, and this is mandatory to write inside the class method as a first argument. Yes, we write it like this because, as I said already, the class is a blueprint for creating the objects. So, after the creation of the object from the class, while calling the method which is present inside the class, we will pass the object itself as a first parameter. So, in the current example, I have made use of the variable name as self to represent the object. So guys, even though you're free to use any variable name instead of self, but it is always recommended to use as self as a good coding practice. Okay? So, to summarize here, we have learned that the method in a class refers to the function which is written inside the class, and the first parameter in the class method is always reserved to the variable which represents the class object. And it is a good practice to use the variable name as self to represent the object inside the class method. Okay? I'll now execute the cell. So, this has created the class, and now I'll create an object like this. Object1 is equal to my car. Okay, I have now created an object obj1, that is object1. Now, to call the class method, we will call it just like the attributes. So, it is like object1.carName. That is object name dot class method name, and inside the parenthesis, we will pass in the arguments if the function has any. In our case, the parameters expected by our method, that is my car, is only self, which is nothing but the object of the class. Hence, we are not passing anything inside the parenthesis, as the object will be sent as default as a first argument. Okay, we have the error here, and the error says name new car is not defined. Now, why are we getting this error? Okay, let's do one thing. Let's try to call the attribute here, that is new car, and see whether the value is printing correctly or not. So, obj1, that is object1 dot new car. Okay, we are getting the output as Mercedes. That means there is nothing wrong with the attributes inside the class. Now what to do? Let's see the method which we have written inside the class. Okay? So as we can see, we have simply written as print new car. But guys, like I said already, while accessing the class method, we will send the object itself as a first argument. Now, to access the attribute inside the class, we have to call as object name dot attribute. In our case, we are simply calling the attribute without reference of the object. So what I'll do is, I'll just change the code like this. Class my car and new car is equal to Mercedes, def car name self, and print self dot new car. So this time what I have done is, I have changed the print statement, and inside the class method, I have changed as print self.newCar. Here what I have done is, I have used as self because in our class method, variable self represents the object. Now to access the class attribute, we will call as self.newCar. Let's execute this. Yes, as we can see in the output, we have the output as Mercedes. So guys, I hope you now have an idea as how to create the class attributes and class methods. And apart from these concepts, there is one more special method written inside the class. So guys, we will call it as a special method because it starts and ends with double underscores. So it is called as Init Method. It is the first method written inside the class, and anything written inside the init method will be executed when a new object is created. So to illustrate the same, I'll write it like this. Okay. Here I have created an init method and this takes in 3 parameters. One is self, which is nothing but the object itself. Next is name, and then we have age. So under the init method, I have assigned the value we take from the input into the object's attribute. Hence, I have accessed the object's attribute as self.name and self.age and assign the values from the user's input. Now observe this very carefully. Since the init method takes 2 parameters, that is, when we are creating a new object for this class, we have to pass in 2 parameters, or else the object will not be created. So if I write it like this and execute the code, yes, observe here, we have the error in the program that says when the program is trying to create the object, it is missing 2 required positional arguments, that is name and age. So we have to write as person1 is equal to person Jetalal, 50, and then I'll execute the code. As we can see, we have not received any error. That means the object person1 has been created without any error. Now, let's call the method which we have created inside the class for printing the name and age. So, I'll call as person1.outputDisplay. See, we have the output as age is 50 and the name is Jetalal. So guys, I hope you now have an idea as how we can create classes in Python. So with this, we come to the end of this section on understanding the core Python required for data science and deep learning. In the next section, we will make use of our learnings and complete a mini project to get on hands-on experience with coding. So guys, see you then.